Of the continued Chinese war games, Taiwan on Wednesday has unveiled its most advanced fighter jet, the missile-equipped F-16V, in a rare nighttime demonstration in front of the media. The Taiwanese military demonstrated its determination to defend the democratically governed island. Now, the Taiwanese military also demonstrated as to how fast they can upload weapons onto the fighter jets. 6 of them later took off in the night training mission. The Defense Ministry said that while Taipei condemned China's military drills, the situation was a good chance of Taiwan's forces to hone in their own skills.
应该这么说就是我们对于中共在不断的在台海周边海空域来进行一些挑衅性的举动，破坏区域的和平，我们要表达谴责。但是我们也必须要说，维持我们的战备训练的强度，去确保以战备训练作为一个本务，这是我们军人的一个职责。所以中共现在所有采取的行动，正好提供了我们一个很好的一个练兵的机会。我们会把握这个机会，把我们平常所做的所有的战备训练来做一个验证。那么透过验证去改进我们的目前的做法，去提升我们的战力。中华民国的军人是非常有信心、有能力，也有决心。去捍卫中华民国的安全。
Now, Taiwan lives under constant threat of a possible invasion by China. China, remember, claims Taiwan as a renegade breakaway province that it intends to reunify with mainland China if force by needed. And in the wake of the military drills, the biggest ever military drills that have happened after the controversial visit by the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in the first week of August, 5 other American lawmakers have also visited Taiwan this week. And Pelosi's visit irked Beijing, and China, of course, responded with test launches of its ballistic missiles over Taipei for the very first time. It also sent its warships, its fighter jets and its submarines close to Taiwan, though the current scale of the activities have now reduced in the course of this week. Now, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has maintained that they are not seeking to provoke Beijing or to escalate tensions further. The United States and Taiwan on Wednesday, however, have agreed to start trade talks in another sign of support by Washington towards Taipei. The start of the formal talks would be to reach economically meaningful outcomes, and the agenda for the talks includes issues like trade facilitation. The good regulatory practices and also removing discriminatory barriers to trade, and the statement, however, did not mention the possibility of a broad free trade deal, which is something that Taiwan has been pressing for from Washington. Now, Washington, despite the lack of the formal diplomatic ties, has been keen to bolster its support for Taiwan, especially as it faces increased political pressure from China to accept its claims of sovereignty. Meanwhile, a delegation of the Canadian lawmakers have announced that they intend to visit Taiwan sometime during October. Now, this is another move that could further stoke the tensions between China and the West. The lawmakers have said that they seek economic opportunities in the Asia-Pacific region, but do not intend to disrupt the status quo. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what the situation actually is like on the ground, we're being joined by Vincent Chao, who's a former political director at Taiwan's representative office in Washington, D.C. He's joining us live from Taipei. Now, Mr. Chao, this is a pretty precarious situation. This is almost, in some ways unprecedented in the wake of what China has done after Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. The question that I want to ask you is, Taiwan has accused China of preparing or rehearsing for a possible invasion through these biggest military drills. Within Taiwan, what is the mood like? What do they sense that Beijing is up to?
I think to a certain extent, the mood in Taiwan is calm. I think people here in Taiwan have a certain degree of expectation that the Chinese would engage in this sort of military and economic actions. And certainly based on the actions they've taken in the past few years, this is nothing too new. And so we're not seeing a sense of panic or anxiety here in Taipei, I think, which is good, and which I think we'll continue to see. I think many people in Taiwan see it very clearly this way, which is that on the visit of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a visit by a House Speaker to Taiwan has happened in the past. Newt Gingrich came in 1997 when he was House Speaker. The Chinese did not engage in economic sanctions, military exercises, live fire exercises then in 1997. And what's changed in the past 25 years? And so the people here in Taiwan are very clear. China's changed. The PRC has changed. Their ambitions have changed. And clearly, now more than ever before, they are seeking to change the status quo either through force or through other forceful measures. And that should be cause for concern, not only for Taiwan, but any democracy around the world.
Right now, at this point of time, Taiwan is also getting itself up. It has done its military drills. It's also exhibited its best fighter jet so far, the F-16V. Now, the question that I want to ask you is, the American assessment says that China could look at invading Taiwan sometime by 2026 or 2027, when the Chinese military build-up in that region will overmatch the American presence. How concerned is Taiwan about this?
I think Taiwan is very rational, pragmatic when of discussion. What it's going to come down to is risk and cost. And so as long as we can keep a certain amount of risk and cost involved in a potential cross-strait invasion scenario, then the likelihood of such a scenario taking place remains quite remote. And how we can continue to create cost and how we can continue to heighten risk is to, number one, engaging in our own defense reform. So President Tsai has engaged in the largest expansion of our military in recent times. She has increased the military budget by about over 20% at this point. And so we're seeing a lot of increased military expenditure. We're seeing new military hardware like the F-16Vs that you spoke about, which are both new purchases as well as new refurbishments from the US. But also on top of the military scenario, we see the need for international cooperation. And as long as other countries, including India, can continue to pay an interest in a cross-strait situation, continue to show support for Taiwan's democracy, that is deterrence. And that is, in the end, I think, what's going to keep the Chinese from engaging in a cross-strait military scenario.
The question that I want to ask you finally is, the American strategy towards Taiwan is that of strategic ambiguity. The Americans have not opened their cards out to say as to what they intend to do if the Chinese were to invade Taiwan. The question that I need to ask you is, we've witnessed what happened in the case of Ukraine. Do you think the Americans have an appetite to get into a direct conflict with China or Taiwan?
I think questions of strategic ambiguity, in the end, this is a question for the United States. I'm not best positioned to respond to that. But, for Taiwan, our plan is very clear. Regardless of whether there's strategic ambiguity or not, our plan for Taiwan is to enhance our own self-defense. And that is probably the most important work we can engage in this point. So if, unlike Ukraine, we can get the military hardware, our defense capabilities in position now, in position in the next few months, next few years, and ensure that we have sufficient deterrence capabilities, then that is how we can protect Taiwan's democracy, and that is how we can protect Taiwan's security. So I would say the real hard work is actually ensuring that we are ready defensively for any scenario that could take place, instead of debating on whether we have strategic ambiguity or not.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Vincent Chao, for joining us and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.